The clinic hummed under buzzing lights, its walls crowded with posters pleading for rent relief and job fairs. Alex sat buried in patient files, his tired eyes flicking between forms. Jordan leaned in, gently urging him to rest. Maya entered briskly, her presence steady, carrying the tension of urgency. She spoke of the city council fast-tracking Vale's development plan. Alex resisted but listened, voice rough with doubt. Outside, storm clouds gathered, neon bled through the glass, making the clinic glow like an island of resistance. Their words carried weight, low and urgent, an undercurrent of justice against corruption. In this space, trust began to form stronger threads, weaving these lives together against the forces of power waiting outside, already plotting the fight to come. The city hall loomed under gray skies, stone steps slick with rain. Cole adjusted his tie, speaking effortlessly to the press gathered on the steps. His words carried practiced ease, a melody designed to soothe doubt. Cameras flashed, umbrellas tilted, recording his promise of jobs and change. Alex arrived, shoulders hunched, still carrying the clinic's weight. Their eyes locked, sharp recognition flaring. Cole, all confidence teased with charm, offering metaphors of steps and climbing, while Alex pushed back with quiet fire, accusing him of building power on people. The exchange cut through the noise, a duel dressed as dialogue, both refusing to yield. Around them, journalists leaned in, sensing more than a policy spat. This was rivalry born of history, one that promised sparks yet to fly. Books stacked like barricades filled Eleanor's home. Eleanor sat in a worn chair, hands steady as she poured tea. Alex leaned forward, documents spread, eyes searching. She spoke in measured tones, voice seasoned with regret, recalling how zoning boards never moved without unseen pressure. Her words hinted at past dances with power, decisions made in dim rooms heavy with consequence. She revealed fragments, not confessions, but Alex felt the weight pressing through each syllable. He asked if she'd done this before. Her gaze faltered, haunted. Outside, night pressed against window glass, lamplight catching dust in golden swirls. Between sips of tea and long silences, a fragile alliance formed, one carrying the gravity of both truth and fear. The riverfront stretched wide, wind tugging at caution tape. Jordan knelt, helping an older man clutching a twisted ankle, voice steady, hands gentle. Nearby, Alex watched construction equipment rumble, tearing into soil that once held a community garden. Jordan explained the demolition came early, without notice, fear rippling through neighbors. His tone softened, almost breaking as he looked toward Alex, his hand briefly squeezing Alex, grounding him. Around them, mud clung to boots, the sky threatened rain, and the ground felt stolen, stripped of memory. The contrast between steel machines and trembling hands spoke louder than any council speech. It was a moment of quiet intimacy and shared grief, a warning of what power would take if left unchecked. The town hall gymnasium buzzed, folding chairs clattering, mics squealing. Maya moved with precision near the entrance, scanning faces, eyes sharp. Cole chatted easily with a council member, polished and unshaken. Regina entered with aura of inevitability, flawless poise. Alex sat at the mic, papers trembling underhand, heart pounding against chest. The chair called for his name, his voice steadied as he stood. He laid accusations bare. Shell companies, secret meetings, demolitions begun too soon. Murmurs rolled like a wave through the crowd, reporters leaning forward. Cole's practiced smile faltered for a moment, Regina's composure unbroken but strained. The atmosphere thickened, every sound heightened, as if the entire city waited for the next word to fall. The municipal records room lay hidden under dim lights, shelves stacked high with boxes marked in fading ink. Alex and Maya slipped inside, breath tight with urgency. Her boots clicked softly, then stopped as she looped the security camera feed with calm precision. Alex pulled files free, papers rustling, and uncovered a trail of shell companies hidden in coded ledgers. Their whispers mixed with the hum of fluorescent lights. Maya warned of time, her eyes darting toward the door. Footsteps echoed suddenly, sending tension through them both. They pressed into shadows, watching as a janitor wheeled a cart past, unaware of their intrusion. Alex gripped the document tighter, realization hitting him that corruption was thicker than rumor. He knew this was evidence, fragile yet damning, a thread that could unravel everything if it reached the light. The coffee shop bustled with morning chatter, steam clouding windows, espresso machines hissing. Cole slid into the booth opposite Alex, his suit perfect, his smile effortless. He spoke like a salesman, weaving promises of real influence and quiet power. Alex remained rigid, hands clasped, eyes sharp, listening but resisting. Cole leaned closer, lowering his voice, insisting that rot could be replanted if someone bold enough entered the inner circle. His words tempted like a serpent's, dressed in charm, sharpened with ambition. Alex answered with quiet refusal, a fire in his tone, saying corruption did not cleanse itself from within. Silence fell for a beat, heavy as the clinking of mugs around them. Cole's smile softened into something sharper, as if warning that refusal came with a cost. Then he left his card on the table, a choice resting in its weight. At the riverfront lot, machines loomed like beasts, their engines idling over broken soil. Jordan moved quickly, crouching beside an older man injured near the debris, his voice steady, hands skilled. Alex stood at the edge, fists tightening as he saw where the garden had been, torn apart without warning. Jordan glanced up, anger flashing in his calm eyes, telling Alex the demolition had started weeks early. His words carried quiet outrage, sharpened by grief for neighbors who depended on this place. Rain clouds gathered, wind tugging at the caution tape, mud thick underfoot. Jordan's hand squeezed Alex briefly, grounding him, a silent reminder of the stakes. Around them, the clash between compassion and steel machines became undeniable, as if the land itself mourned what was taken too soon. Eleanor's living room smelled of old paper and tea, shelves sagging under the weight of years. Alex spread documents across the table, voice quick, explaining the connections he uncovered. Eleanor listened in silence, her lined face shadowed, fingers curling around a file too familiar. When he pressed, she admitted what he suspected. She had faced Vale before years ago, and failed to act when the evidence was thin, but the pressure immense. Her voice cracked on the word fear, the regret etched in every syllable. Alex's anger faded into recognition of the burden she carried. Outside, stormlight flickered across rain-slick windows, throwing their faces into pale gold. Eleanor's confession was not absolution, but it was the opening of a wound long hidden. The truth now lay on the table, fragile but unstoppable. The gymnasium town hall pulsed with voices, folding chairs packed, banners sagging overhead. Maya stood near the door, sharp-eyed, scanning every move like a guard. Cole whispered to a council member, his charisma unshaken, while Vale entered like a storm contained in silk, her dress flawless, her smile controlled. Alex stepped to the microphone, papers trembling in his grip, heart pounding in his throat. The chair called his name, and his voice steadied, accusing the council of hidden donations, secret meetings and demolitions begun in violation of law. Murmurs erupted, reporters leaning forward, pens scratching. Cole's smile cracked for an instant, Vale's mask strained though unbroken. The tension grew electric, the crowd shifting, waiting, as Alex forced into the open what others tried so hard to keep buried. The chamber bristled with whispers as the gavel cracked and the mics hissed alive. Eleanor stood, palms steady over papers that carried more weight than they looked. She spoke in clean lines, admitting a choice made under pressure that still burned. Alex watched, feeling the floor tilt as past and present fused into one ledger. Maya shifted near the aisle, mapping exits, reading glances, counting unknowns. Cole smiled lightly, but a pulse tugged at his jaw when cameras swung his way. Regina held her poise, a porcelain calm that refused to acknowledge the cracks. The audience leaned forward, sensing the moment when silence becomes admission. Eleanor finished, voice low, and handed the record across like a key to a door. The city exhaled, and the storm outside rumbled, promising a clean, hard rain. In the corridor, the noise of the chamber softened to a hum like distant power. Cole moved fast, phone lifted, voice clipped, ordering a delay that felt rehearsed. Maya slid between him and the door, posture relaxed, eyes bright and unblinking. He offered charm first, asking for reason, then leverage, then the old hometown pitch. She answered with economy, saying the line holds, and his feet can choose a side. Their words crossed like blades, polite on the surface, sharpened underneath. Rain traced the glass, throwing ripples of light over tile and polished brass. Cole ended the call, pocketed the card tricks, and measured the space between them. Maya did not move, and the hallway felt like a narrow bridge over deep water. He stepped back, smiling thin, conceding inches while calculating the miles ahead. Back inside, a tenant reached the mic with shaking hands and a voice made of grit. Jordan steadied the man's elbow, nodding gently as the story found its center. He spoke of the garden, of names in the soil, of mornings now scraped by machines. The room stilled, and even the air vents seemed to wait for what came next. Alex stepped beside him, not to speak over, but to hold the space open. Numbers followed, dates, filings, and a path through shell doors to a single office. Cole watched, eyes bright with calculation, noting which truths might be survived. Regina's smile thinned, careful as glass, unbroken yet pressed by the crowd's heat. The chair cleared a dry throat, announced a stay and an audit, and the room lifted. Applause broke ragged, like thunder rolling across roofs that had earned a dawn. The crowd unraveled into corridors, a river of bodies, voices, and damp umbrellas. Regina swept past with measured grace, a practiced drift that refused to snag. Cameras chased, but her gaze glided forward as if the lenses were only weather. Cole lingered near the stair, catching Alex with a look that held admiration and threat. He said the delay was clever, and asked what happens when the city needs a ribbon. Alex answered that homes beat ribbons, and lines drawn in lock and hold. The fluorescent hum deepened, adding a metallic taste to the space between them. For a breath, something human flickered in Cole, then locked itself away. He offered a warning wrapped like advice, then turned with the confidence of rehearsal. Alex stood still, feeling the choice sharpen, and quietly chose the harder edge. Dawn opened pale and clean over the riverfront, the sight stilled by tape and order. Alex knelt to the soil and pressed a tender sprout into a narrow seam of loam. Eleanor stood a step away, hands folded, eyes wet with relief rather than victory. Jordan arrived with coffee, the steam rising into air that smelled like wet iron. Maya paced the perimeter on the phone, setting schedules, building the guardrails. Neighbors drifted in, carrying seedlings and stories, careful not to wake old grief. A gull sailed over the dark water, and the breeze tugged at the yellow tape. Alex breathed, slower now, and felt the future route where panic used to live. Eleanor said confession opens doors, and he answered that walking through takes many. They worked in silence for a while, and the light gathered like a promise kept. The council chamber echoed in uneasy quiet as folders stacked higher on the dais. Reporters scribbled, their pens scratching like restless insects in the charged air. Alex leaned against the back wall, arms folded, watching truth coil into record. Maya remained by the exit, her sharp gaze sweeping, never trusting the silence. Eleanor sat forward, chin steady, her earlier confession now reshaped into resolve. Cole conferred with an aide, his tone calm but his hand tapping the table in rhythm. Regina smiled faintly, polished and practiced, though her eyes betrayed calculation. The chair announced the audit formally, voice thin, as murmurs rippled outward. For a moment, the room felt weightless, balanced between collapse and renewal. Thunder rolled above, punctuating the fragile gravity of what had been exposed. Outside, the storm broke, rain hammering sidewalks and pooling against curbs. Alex hurried across the street, documents sealed tight in a battered folder. Maya followed close, umbrella forgotten, her jacket's slick boots splashing water. Jordan waved them into the clinic, holding the door against the driving wind. Inside, light glowed warm and dim, contrasting the chaos spilling outside. Eleanor arrived a beat later, clutching her scarf, soaked but composed. The group gathered at the desk, spreading papers, their voices low but urgent. Every page revealed more threads, more names, all pointing toward the same core. The clinic buzzed faintly, its hum almost drowned by the rain battering the glass. Together, they pieced the fragments into a picture too wide to ignore any longer. The clinic became a war room, papers spread across tables and pinned to corkboards. Jordan brewed coffee, passing mugs around as tension gave way to weary focus. Alex drew circles around names, mapping the links to Vale and her shadow companies. Maya pointed at gaps, urging caution, warning of retaliation still unspent. Eleanor read aloud the codes and filings, her voice carrying both regret and clarity. The storm outside rattled glass, thunder underlining every new revelation. Jordan steadied the room with calm words, reminding them what was at stake. Alex looked up, fire in his eyes, realizing this evidence could bring it all down. Their faces caught the lamplight, shadows etched into conviction and resolve. In that dim room, they stopped being individuals and became something larger. Cole sat alone in his office, blinds half drawn, the city glowing in fractured light. His tie loosened, his sleeves rolled, but his expression still carried composure. He studied a file. The same evidence Alex had carried, now leaked through whispers. Regina's voice crackled on speakerphone, calm but icy, demanding containment. Cole listened without reply, his jaw tight, knowing storms cannot be bargained with. The office smelled of bourbon and paper, shadows long from the desk lamp. Rain painted streaks across glass, neon bleeding through like faint bruises. He whispered softly to himself, a line rehearsed for a stage he had not chosen. The file shut with a snap, his reflection caught in the window like a ghost. He poured a drink and stared out, calculating how to pivot in the morning. Morning broke pale, streets washed clean, though the city's weight lingered heavy. Alex stepped out of the clinic, folder under arm, watching workers arrive nearby. Maya joined him, eyes sharp but softened, asking if he was ready for the next step. Jordan arrived carrying breakfast, quiet steadiness anchoring the edge of nerves. Eleanor walked slower, her scarf pulled close, gaze lifted toward the clear sky. They stood together in the quiet moment before motion, a circle formed in resolve. The evidence would go public today, the fight shifting into sharper ground. Alex breathed deeply, shoulders straighter, as if the city rested in his stance. Maya touched his arm briefly, silent affirmation of trust between allies. The sun crept higher, and with it came the weight of choice sharpened into action. The press conference hall filled with the hum of cameras and the nervous shuffle of chairs. Alex stepped to the podium, folder in hand, his voice carrying calm conviction. Maya stood at the back, her gaze sweeping the crowd, alert for the unseen threats. Jordan leaned against the side wall, steady presence anchoring the room's tension. Eleanor sat in the front row, her lined face softened by pride and a hint of regret. Cole slipped into the audience, his smile sharp, waiting for the perfect fracture. Regina did not appear, but her absence carried the weight of strategy in retreat. Alex unveiled the documents, connecting names, dates, and the silent machinery of power. Gasps followed, shutters clicked, and the balance of the room shifted irrevocably. The city's hidden story stood bare, and silence carried more weight than applause. The report hit headlines by evening, papers spread across kiosks, screens flashing breaking news. Crowds gathered in small knots outside the clinic, voices mixing in outrage and relief. Alex stood with Jordan and Maya, answering questions, steady but worn at the edges. Children played at the corner, tugging at signs painted the night before in haste. Eleanor lingered nearby, fielding interviews reluctantly, offering context, not fame. Cole walked past once, his expression unreadable, blending into the restless current. The city buzzed with energy, unsure if justice had begun or simply shifted stage. Jordan reminded Alex to breathe, slipping a coffee into his hand with quiet care. Maya laughed dryly, pointing out that peace was not in the cards just yet. The air thickened with rain's promise, heavy with both storm and renewal. Late night, the clinic dimmed again, papers stacked neatly now instead of scattered. Alex slumped at the desk, exhaustion lining his face, but resolve steady within. Maya paced the room, her phone buzzing with calls from reporters and allies. Jordan leaned against the counter, humming softly, a melody calming the thick air. Eleanor sipped tea, her presence less burdened, as if confession lightened her frame. They talked of what would follow, the trials, the pushback, the endless committees. Alex admitted fear, but his voice carried something else, a deeper steel beneath. Maya stopped pacing, her eyes meeting his, the first trace of softness breaking through. Jordan laughed gently, insisting they had already shifted the tide once before. The storm outside eased into drizzle, tapping softly against the weary glass. Cole stood on the bridge at dawn, city skyline behind him painted in pale fire. He leaned against the railing, expression unreadable, watching the river churn below. His phone buzzed once, twice, with numbers he chose not to answer. Regina's voice remained absent, her silence heavier than any words might be. Cole thought of Alex, of choices diverging, of lines drawn in water, not stone. For a flicker, the mask slipped, and something raw crossed his face like a ghost. He exhaled hard, straightened his tie, and turned as footsteps echoed behind him. Reporters called his name, flashes burst, and his expression slid back into armor. His future narrowed into a path made of calculation and stubborn pride. The sun cleared the horizon, casting long shadows that reached both ways at once. By afternoon, the riverfront lot hummed with new life, neighbors planting in open soil. Alex knelt again, this time not alone, but surrounded by hands steady with hope. Jordan helped children place seedlings, laughter rolling like a hymn across mud. Maya stood with organizers, charting rosters, her voice calm yet still watchful. Eleanor sat on a bench, smiling softly, eyes bright with quiet redemption. The garden rose again, fragile but undeniable, green defying gray machines. Alex looked around, a weight lifting, not gone, but lighter than before. He knew more battles waited, but this moment belonged to roots and voices. Maya caught his gaze, and for once her guard fell, replaced by trust. The wind carried the smell of soil and rain, a promise written in earth. The audit landed like a bell, its tone steady enough to quiet the room. Pages turned, and each name echoed through microphones and restless pens. The chair read findings that froze the vote and seized the contracts. Alex held the breath of the crowd and felt it return heavier and clearer. Maya tracked the aisles, counting faces that shifted from doubt to belief. Jordan touched Alex's shoulder, a small anchor against the public tide. Eleanor's hands loosened at last, as if an old door had finally opened. Cole listened with the poise of a practiced swimmer watching a riptide form. Regina's lawyer rose to object, and the script met a different ending. Outside, the rain ceased, and the windows filled with a thinner, cleaner light. Twilight lifted over the clinic roof, the city humming like a tired engine. Alex leaned against the low wall, letting the day leak out in slow currents. Jordan joined him with 2 coffees and the silence of someone who knows. They spoke of next steps, not victory, of paperwork and neighbors and rent. Jordan's laugh cut through the chill, small and warm, and it held. Alex admitted fear, and the word didn't break him, it steadied him. He said the garden felt like a promise that demanded work, not applause. Jordan nodded and said they could build a place that keeps people whole. The wind snapped the tape below, and the lights blinked into evening. They stood side by side, and the city felt less like a problem, more like a home. In a small lecture room, Eleanor faced a dozen volunteers and a blank whiteboard. She outlined permits and appeals, the slow tools that keep homes intact. Her voice carried fewer regrets now, more instructions and clear maps. Alex listened from the doorway, learning the patience law requires. Maya asked sharp questions, turning rules into checklists and routes. Jordan passed clipboards, his ease making the room breathe easier. Eleanor paused, admitting truth is not a finish line, only a compass. The group nodded, pencil scratching, a new muscle forming. Outside, sun squared the windows, a gold grid across old paint. They stayed late, building a playbook that would outlast the headline. Under the bridge, the river spoke in iron and shadow as traffic hummed above. Cole waited by the pylons, tie loosened, posture still elegant and dangerous. Alex arrived, not invited, but expected by the logic of unfinished arguments. Cole said the audit would bend, and asked who carries the city when rage sleeps. Alex answered that people do, if the ledgers stop lying and the rules apply. For a breath, the mirror held them both, similar edges, different centers. Cole offered a path inside with cleaner gloves and dirtier pockets. Alex declined and wished him luck finding daylight the hard way. The river slapped stone, and a train hammered the spine of the bridge. Cole smiled thin, promised to survive and let the darkness keep its terms. By weekend, the garden drew a crowd, and the river smelled like rain and mint. Tables held seedlings and ledgers, proof that beauty and order can share space. Alex signed volunteers in while laughing at a joke he barely heard. Maya coordinated deliveries, voice calm, eyes soft for once. Jordan taught kids to plant, naming each sprout like a neighbor. Eleanor shared tea on a folding chair and told a story without regret. Music floated from a phone, thin and perfect for the wide morning. Someone cheered as a finch landed on the fence and refused to leave. Alex looked up and knew the work would never end, and that this was good. The camera of the day pulled back, and the frame finally felt wide enough. The city park filled slowly as the weekend fair began, bright tents rising like beacons. Alex walked among the tables, shaking hands, his smile genuine but cautious. Maya stood by the entrance, clipboard in hand, scanning vendors with practiced eyes. Jordan laughed with children near the stage, their chalk drawings spreading across concrete. Eleanor arrived later, leaning on a cane but glowing, her presence welcomed with cheers. Cole appeared at the edge of the crowd, suit less formal, face unreadable in the sun. He clapped lightly, more performance than sincerity, yet his eyes stayed locked on Alex. The crowd hummed louder, banners snapping in warm wind, music spilling from speakers. Alex straightened, shoulders lifted, carrying both gratitude and burden into the day. The fair became more than gathering, it was a proof that roots had taken hold. Inside the clinic, the group reviewed schedules pinned on corkboards, every square filled. Maya outlined patrols for volunteers, her voice even, her posture commanding. Jordan marked supply deliveries, ensuring no family went without food or medicine. Eleanor noted legal clinics scheduled, her steady handwriting anchoring the plans. Alex listened, letting the team's rhythm prove that leadership wasn't solitary. They debated strategy for the next council session, balancing caution with pressure. The air smelled of ink and coffee, papers fluttering slightly under the fan. For a moment, laughter broke tension, reminding them that resilience needs joy. Maya cracked a rare smile, quick but sincere, when Alex joked about her lists. The clinic walls felt stronger than stone, holding the sound of futures being drawn. At dusk, the garden pulsed with music as lanterns swayed between wooden posts. Neighbors carried baskets of vegetables, setting them on long communal tables. Jordan orchestrated a small meal, laughter following each gesture he made. Maya leaned against a post, arms folded, her watchful eyes finally softer. Eleanor sat near children who listened to her stories as they ate. Alex moved through the crowd, pausing to share quiet words with each group. Cole appeared briefly again, but this time only to watch from beyond the fence. His silhouette lingered, neither leaving nor joining, a figure of choices unmade. The lanterns glowed brighter, casting long shadows across soil, still damp with growth. It felt like a harvest, not of crops alone, but of voices that refused to vanish. In the library basement, the first town committee convened, folding chairs scraping tile. Alex spoke firmly, calling the meeting to order, his voice calm but resolved. Maya presented the agenda, efficient and sharp, while volunteers nodded along. Eleanor reminded the group that patience builds power stronger than outrage alone. Jordan distributed packets, pausing to explain in clear, steady tones. The space smelled of books and dust, but energy thrummed alive in the circle. Cole's absence was noted, his name left hanging between questions not asked. Neighbors raised concerns, and each voice was given weight on the page. For the first time, bureaucracy felt like a shield, not a cage. The night stretched long, but the table of papers became a blueprint for endurance. At sunrise, Alex walked the riverbank alone, the city still half asleep. He watched mist lift slowly, the bridge's ribs slicing pale light into patterns. He thought of every hand that had shaped the fight, and every loss it carried. Jordan's laughter, Maya's steadiness, Eleanor's truth, all etched like roots in him. He felt Cole's shadow too, a reminder of paths bent differently but close. The city skyline gleamed faintly, promising neither victory nor defeat, only endurance. Alex picked up a seedling from his pocket, pressing it gently into soft earth. His breath steadied, his stance widened, the weight carried more evenly now. The morning promised more battles, more storms, more walls to climb. But the soil answered quietly, offering growth to whoever dared return again.